Hello Healing Warriors, this is Deborah Rogers and part of my Breathing Through COVID series. All about breathing more easily, breathing better, more efficiently, and decreasing our anxiety. So the last video was all about belly breathing, which is using the diaphragm, but the main focus of that video was to really take our attention from our upper chest where we feel shortness of breath, perhaps pain, and grounding our awareness into our belly to help quickly calm our anxiety, to help calm our nervous system, and to also realize we can get that air in. And now that you've practiced that breathing, let's go on to a more in-depth teaching of the diaphragmatic breathing. So let's get started. So I invite you just to put one hand on your chest, and the other hand on your belly. And just take a few deep breaths, nothing forceful, you're not, just paying attention to how you breathe and the movement of your hands. And as you do this, notice which hand is moving more. If it's your upper hand, you tend to be a chest breather, and a lot of us actually tend to be chest breathers unless we're really paying attention to our breathing. But the bottom hand is actually what we really want to be moving more. Why don't we want chest breathing? Well, think about the lungs as a triangle, okay? And the top of the lungs don't have as much room as the bottom of the lungs. And the bottom of the lungs is where there's really much more efficiency for blood flow and oxygen exchange. So that's why we really want to focus on not breathing in the chest, which also creates shallow breathing and also can create anxiety as well. And focus more on diaphragmatic breathing. So what's diaphragmatic breathing? Well, the diaphragm is a huge muscle, and it's actually, let's consider it the lung's best friend because it's really what helps the lung. It gets the air in and out. So it's actually one of our best friends too, right? It's this huge muscle that is under the ribcage and wraps around. And so when you breathe in, the diaphragm contracts and goes down, allowing more room for the lungs and for air to get in. And as we breathe out, what happens is the diaphragm releases, come back to position, and kind of pushes the lungs so that the air can get out in an exhalation. At the same time, our ribs are also helping out. They're expanding, they're moving outward and upward, so we can really get a lot of air into those lower lungs and get a lot of good movement. And what else is important about the diaphragm? From the first video, what we were talking about is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is that amazing cranial nerve that runs from the brainstem, connects to the heart, the lungs, goes through the diaphragm, connects to the gut. And when we're doing our breathing, especially slow, elongated exhalations, that vagus nerve is stimulated, and that stimulates our calming system, our parasympathetic system, which promotes rest and digest, rest and repair, and healing. So as we breathe, there's a couple of things we're going to focus on. One is we want to try, if possible, to breathe through the nose, because the nose helps warm and humidify that air that's coming into our lungs to help soothe our lungs. And it's also a natural air filter for us, protecting our lungs. When we reach the inhalation, then we pause for a count of 2, and then we're going to slowly exhale through pursed lips. We're not blowing out a candle. It's like we're just blowing on the steam, cooling cocoa or a bowl of soup. And the other thing you want to think about too is you don't want to force that exhalation, because if you're forcing it, what can happen is it can also irritate the lungs. If it's easier for you, you can breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your nose. I tend to prefer, and a lot of people tend to feel that they can get a long, slow exhalation that's more controlled through pursed lips. And remember, our jaws soften through these pursed lips. We're not blowing out those candles. Okay? So let's begin. So we're going to just put our hands on our belly just as we did when we were belly breathing. Just take in a couple of nice breaths in We're going to pause now for count of 2, and then we're going to exhale. Elongated exhale. Now you're going to move that hand up a little, right at the bottom of the rib cage. Remember, we want to also focus on our posture. So bring those shoulders up, roll them back, sliding your shoulder blades down your back, not sticking the rib cage out too much. Elongated back, and your chin comes a little back slightly so that your ears are over your shoulders. When you have a good posture, it's a lot easier to breathe because you're not hunched down and then the diaphragm can't move. Same if you eat a big meal, not much room for that diaphragm to move, and it feels like you can't get as good of a breath. So having our hand right here, just focusing on imagining that the air is coming in, filling this as the diaphragm is moving down. So imagine as you inhale, diaphragm moving down, hold for 2, and then just exhaling as the diaphragm moves back up. And then try one more time, breathing in, 1, 2, holding, 1, 2, breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4. So a lot of times this is what's taught, but what we forget is that we're not just this two-dimensional being. This is a 360 diaphragmatic breathing that we got to focus on. So keeping one hand here, if you can, bring a hand to the back. It's not much movement that you may feel, but you might actually feel it kind of expanding on the in-breath, both in the front and back of your body, and then relaxing on the out-breath. So let's try that, okay? So inhaling to 2 to 4. Pause and exhale for 4. Inhaling. Pause and exhaling. If you're feeling like this is too difficult or frustrating, try doing this in reclining and it's easier. And then 360, we can't forget about our sides, that rib cage. So what happens is the rib cage goes out and up. But if you put your hands here in the lower rib cage, you should feel it expanding. So you're going to be inhaling. Watch my hands expand, hold, and exhaling. Inhaling as the diaphragm goes down, rib cage goes out. Hold. Exhaling. And then doing one on your own. Well, you can try, if you'd like to try again, you can try breathing and using your hands that's just in front of you, inhaling with your hands going out like the ribcage expansion and exhaling with the ribcage coming in and the hands coming in. So let's try that again at your own pace. Sometimes it can be very helpful to even look at your hands if you're feeling anxiety. Kind of gives your mind that little distraction instead of focusing on a sense of anxiety or a sense, oh, I just can't get this breath. It's giving our mind something to do besides worrying, which is always helpful. Okay, my friends, are you ready to put this all together? The 360 diaphragmatic breathing. Making sure your feet are flat on the floor, good posture. Place your hands. What I'd like to do is place my hands partly in front and on the side so I can feel both the diaphragm and the rib cage moving, and on my back and on the side where I can feel my rib cage. You don't want to hold this position necessarily too long because you don't want to tighten up your shoulders and neck, which happens often in chest breathing, but with diaphragmatic breathing, we're trying to help release those muscles that tend to overwork when they shouldn't be. So we're going to breathe, do the same breathing, inhaling. Let's try to inhale to the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhaling for a count of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How'd that feel? Breathe in for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale for a count of 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And a couple more times. You can do it on your own with your own counting. And notice as you exhale, just to get that extra breath out, you might even contract your lower abdominal muscles a little more, and your abdominal muscles to help you, which is fine. Okay. So keep up the practice. It can feel really difficult at first. I know this took a couple of months at least for me to be able to do this because my diaphragm felt so incredibly tight after having pneumonia and all these other problems and shortness of breath. And the rib cage can also feel very, very tight too. So the more you practice and calm your body, you're also practicing that expansion and relaxation. That's going to help mobilize those muscles and strengthen those muscles, helping them to remember what they're supposed to be doing. Another thing is we tend to have the intercostal muscles between the rib cage can get really tight, especially if you've been having trouble breathing and you haven't been moving a lot. So either you or you can ask a loved one to kind of go right into those intercostal muscles. It's just light where you go down into them, just gliding around. You can even do it up on your chest, going into it, gliding your finger through in between the rib cage. And if you can get someone to do your back area, it is amazing how much that can help you feel like all of a sudden, whoa, I got more room to expand my rib cage and lungs. All right, I wish you health and happiness and always love and joy to you.